Thanks for joining me. Good afternoon. You're with Midday Live. Our top stories for this afternoon. Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly gives hawkers and traders operating at unauthorized places in the metropolis 2 weeks ultimatum to relocate. And on the foreign front, French President Francois Hollande says more French troops are to be deployed in Mali to support the 750 in the country countering an Islamist insurgents. My name is Wendy Lai. I've got the details of these stories and many more coming up shortly. Do stay with me. Now I start with our stories. An inadequate personnel and logistics crippling the work of the Rent Control Department of Ghana. The department in Accra alone is without computers and has only 5 professional rent officers dealing with over 80 cases daily. Here's Abigail Adumakoenchi's report.
With Ghana's housing deficit currently pegged at 1.6 million, the Rent Control Department has an arduous task of enforcing rules relating to housing and rent. But the department is saddled with numerous challenges impeding their work. Though the department has about 54 offices nationwide with 123 personnel, the Accra office, which receives over 80 cases daily, has only 5 professionals dealing with such cases. Clients at the Accra premises told the news team off camera they have to wait for hours and go through cumbersome processes to be attended to. But officials say the department is without computers, leaving them with no option than to work with typewriters and keep records in dockets, delaying clients.
Yes, we finance human personnel, logistics. We have only one rickety 7-year-old double-decker. We need vehicles to go on inspections. I need to go on trek as the chief rent officer. The regional rent officer needs to monitor his people around.
The department needs about 5,000 cities to expedite the review of the Rent Control Act, which will effectively address issues regarding rent advance and housing agents.
If the laws must work, if the government should intensify and then strengthen the rent control by giving us personnel, all these things will stop. Because we have a lot of functions and powers under the Rent Act. If we are well resourced with money and then logistics and then human capacity, we'll do much work.
Though under-resourced, the Rent Control Department intends to decentralize its operations by opening 15 new offices by March this year.
Next is what you think, and this afternoon we're focusing on rent. What are some of the issues you face with your landlord regarding rent issues? What do you think?
The challenges maybe I'm facing is about my room, because every 2 years they want to increase it. And another day to even getting the places service so much, because this time, because of mostly the foreigners and those kind of things in the country. So he make all the rooms, even single room, they are charging 1.5, 1.2 and those kind of things. That's a lot. If the government can build like more estates for the people like us, maybe they can make it affordable so that all of us can get a place.
The government should give the Rent Control Board a push. They should intensify the education that they give to people, because here in Ghana, most people collect rent advance for 1 year. I think it should be done monthly, looking at our level of income. There should be legislation that should make rent to be collected every month. I think that will go a long way to help the citizens of the country.
The number of years the landlords are asking rent to be paid affects the individuals, because the amount involved is so exorbitant. At least if each individual should pay 6 months rent advance, I think that is fine.
For me, I know that government has an institution that controls such things, but it seems that for a while now, even for a decade now, that department or institution has not performing their duty by putting some laws in place that the landlords will not just get up and say, I'm increasing my rents for this year or for the next year. And I think it's affecting us. Most of us are coming from various regions, and Accra has become a cosmopolitan city where we come for work and other things. So they should try and also help us.
It's bad because a single room right now is going between 700 old Ghana and 1 million old Ghana, which is on the high side. How much do people earn? If the rent control is, going by the laws, fine. Because landlords take so much, they don't even pay tax free.
Thanks for staying. You're still watching Midday Live. Akwesi Opong-Fosu MP from Menfi East was last week among a list presented to the Parliament by President Mahama for consideration as local government and rural development minister designate. Well, Akwesi Opong-Fosu defeated former Western Regional Minister and MPP candidate to win the Menfi East seat. If approved by the vetting committee, he will take over from Samuel Ofosu Ampofu, and I have him here in the studio. He was also once head of local government service. Good afternoon. Thanks for your time, sir.
Good afternoon.
I was asking you earlier on if you were amazed or surprised that your name did come up for this very position.
Well, in these situations, you don't expect or demand. When it comes, you are thankful to the appointing authority.
All right. Now, the ministry you have been nominated or will be vetted to head has a huge responsibility when it comes to looking at the development agenda of this country. But lack of personnel for the assemblies is a major issue to channel or help with the development of this country, and you are aware of it. If you should be vetted as a minister for local government and rural development, what would you do regarding this very issue?
Very much aware of the situation because I was at the local government service, which has direct responsibility for administrative decentralization, which include the setting up of departments of the assemblies, the staffing, and what recently was passed through the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, the composite budgeting. So we have done, when I was there, I'd done an auditing of the human resource capacity, and the gaps are being filled. If you remember, His Excellency the President recently mentioned that the local government service is recruiting about 2,500 staff, comprising various skills requirements. So it's an ongoing process to build the capacity, the human resource capacities of the MMDAs to face up to the challenges ahead.
So you're confident that if given the nod, you will improve that very
Yes, I'll support the local government service, which I just left, to carry on with that mandate.
Now you've seen it all when it comes to local governments because of your experience and years you have spent in that very ministry. If given the nod, what would be the very first thing you would change in that ministry, or even when it comes to the assemblies?
Well, I'll be looking at performance issues. Because in this country we make the laws, regulations, and what have you. But when it comes to execution, we have challenges, difficulties. So the issue of MMDA's performance will be top on my priority.
And talking about the MMDAs, some persons are of the view this is an issue that has gone on over and over again, and we still talk about it. Some persons believe that these persons should be elected instead of being appointed by the president. What is your take on it?
That's the DCE.
Yes, the DCEs and then MCEs.
Yes, DCEs, in generic terms, chief executives, yes. What would be the basis for that demand? It's been ongoing,
yes.
And the argument for that has been that there will be more accountability to the electorate. And I know that in Holland, mayors are appointed. That's an advanced democracy. So why are they appointing their mayors and not electing them?
But what would you go for, appointment or election?
No, I'm advancing the argument.
I want you to answer my question first. Will you go for appointment or election?
If you have an insight as to the districts, especially in the central region and in the northern regions, you have some districts within the jurisdiction are about 2 or more traditional areas. I was privileged to be a member of the team that vetted district chief executives in 2009, the candidates. And we have situations where in some of the districts, say if you hear Commander Edina Eguafo, Ebrim, it means that there are about 4 traditional areas. Now what will happen if we put all this, the election of DCE, election of presiding member, to that approach, as people are saying, you have people coming from one major dominant traditional area occupying all these positions.
But they will be elected by the people, and they know what they want. So, and if we have 5 persons, Kofi, Ajwa, Ama, and
all from Commander,
and residents in Commander believe that Kofi can do the work very well, but the president might appoint Ama to do it, they definitely will not be satisfied with it.
No, what I'm saying is that you have, when it comes to voting, the dominant group will say that we are voting for our own man.
Because this is what they want.
Because that person is from that traditional area.
No, but what if they believe that the person can do the work? But you've still not answered my question. Would you go for appointments or election?
Well,
and why?
Let's look at what Ghanaians in totality said when the constitutional
But I'm talking
review
to you
went
as
out.
a person and somebody who will be vetted as a minister for local government and rural development. What would
I'll
you
go for appointment.
Why?
Well, there are security implications here. We have a president who is in a particular political party, and then in certain areas we know these are strongholds of some political parties, and then the political head is elected. You can understand, and then the head is also the head of the district security committee. You can imagine the kind of
but they all come with their sides. What if we try election? We've never done. What if we try it?
Well, let's see. But for now, I will go for appointment.
You go for appointment. Now, the ministry you might oversee or you will oversee still has challenges. A number of them. We've spoken about some already. When it comes to supervision, very low. When it comes to supervision to oversee the construction of even buildings and several aspects of several things that your ministry oversees, it is very low. What would you do about it?
Well, that's
you're speaking about performance.
So we need to put in place that kind of institutional arrangement to ensure that the assemblies live up to their mandate. And now the local government service is responsible for certain aspects, especially in terms of the human resource issues, their performance, in terms of the overall organizational performance as related to the HR performance. But then the ministry has the overall policy area supervision. So we'll be, for instance, the ministry will have to put in place the key performance areas for which the assemblies need to be assessed on. If we say that the priority is sanitation, then we'll prioritize the areas that we'll assess the assemblies on, and then we'll follow that through.
All right. And still on performance, the issue that has to do with the delay in the disbursements of the district assembly common funds. Sometimes these disabled persons, even or physically challenged persons, say that they don't get the monies and they feel it goes to wrong persons. Do you have an agenda for that very issue?
Well, I need to be updated on that.
But you are aware of that issue and you have heard of it?
Yeah, it's not only for disabled. If you are in the districts as the head and there are competing demands on you, the people want to see visible, tangible projects, water, schools, and those infrastructural developments. So when it happens like that, the ones that are not tangible are relegated to the background. Because if you give so much to, say, disabled group or another group.
But they are a part of it.
They are part of it.
So imagine if a physically challenged person is listening and hears you say that there are tangibles and intangibles.
Yeah,
and
I'm just telling the reality. That's what actually happens. So I don't know what is going on now, but I'm just saying that some of the interventions are not tangible. So the head and the assembly will be more inclined or tempted to respond to the very issues that are tangible, to make an impression that this is what I've done, pointing to the projects. So when it comes to social interventions like this one that are not seen, the tendency will be to relegate it. But I would want to.
But are you worried about this very issue?
Oh, yeah, I think it's a cause for worry.
And if you should be given the nod, I'm sure you've already had your plans in place and everything. When you did hear the president add you to the list, what would you do regarding this very issue? You have not been updated about it, like you just said, but you should have a plan.
Well, maybe just to have an idea of what is militating against that, I have no idea now. You mentioned that the late payment of common funds,
and sometimes they don't even get it at all.
Yes, so all these things we need to discuss it and then tackle the issue from the source. And
when you've spoken about supervision, you've also spoken about performance. But another very one is the works of the MMDAs, especially the MCEs and the DCEs. What would you do to ensure that, or how would you supervise them to ensure that they go according to what they've been tasked to do? Because sometimes you might be in Accra and we don't know what is happening in the various assemblies, but they might bring reports that look perfect. So you've gotten there, you might not know that these challenges are there, or they're being confronted by these challenges, or probably they are not doing what they're supposed to do. What would you do to supervise them to ensure that they do a good work?
Well, the regional coordinating councils, as an integral part of the whole local government system, have monitoring and evaluation departments. We need to strengthen that. I know that they don't even have vehicles to do that job. So the RCCs also need to build their capacities to ensure that the work is done.
Okay, and street naming. Do you have it at heart?
Yeah, definitely.
What would you do about it if you?
No, there's an ongoing project.
Yes. As in Obuasi.
Yes.
They're implementing it.
Once I'm updated and I know the challenges, we'll see. We'll pick it up from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Akwesi Opon Fosu, MP for Amefi East End. Last week, he was among a list presented to Parliament by President Mahama for consideration as local government and rural development minister designate. We wish you all the best in your endeavor, and we hope that you do come out tops. Well, we continue with our stories, and the Supreme Court has fixed January 16, 2013 to hear the application of the National Democratic Congress seeking to join a petition contesting the declaration of President John Dramani Mahama as winner of the December 7, 2012 presidential poll. On January 10, 2013, the Supreme Court adjourned the hearing of the application after lawyers of the petitioners objected to the composition of a 9-member panel presided over by Mr. Justice William Atuguba. Other members of the panel are Mr. Justice Julius Ansa, Mrs. Justice Sophia Adinira, Ms. Justice Rose Owusu, Mr. Justice Jones Doche, Mr. Justice Enini Abua, Mrs. Justice P. Bafoboni, Mr. Justice N.S. Badebe, and Mrs. Justice Vida Kotobanfo. Lawyers of the petitioners, however, withdrew their opposition to the panel on January 11, 2013, following the withdrawal of the Registrar of the Supreme Court, James Amwa, has since served hearing notices on lawyers for parties in the case. Some on Midday Live, and the General Secretary of the Movement for Better Ghana, a pro-NDC group, Akwesi Ofori Ajiman Bwedi, says that the move by the NPP's legal team is an attempt to undermine the judicial system, calling it a subversion of justice. This was disclosed at a press conference held in Kumasi.
At a press conference, the group raised concerns about the NPP legal team's earlier withdrawal of the writ, opposing the composition of panel of judges in the current legal battle. The General Secretary of the Movement for Better Ghana, Kwasi Ofori Ajimambwedi, read the group's release.
We hear lawyers for the petitioners objected to the presence of His Lordship, Justice William Atuguba, on the panel of justices, simply because he has somewhat a remote relationship with Dr. Raymond Atuguba, the newly appointed Executive Secretary to the President. So what will happen to Justice Akufu, who is also related to Gloria Akufu and Nana Akufo-Addo remotely? Question number 2. What happens to Justice Enin Yeboah, who we are told is a nephew of former President Kufuor? Question number 3. What happens to Justice Doche, who we are told has once been an executive member of the MPP at Pando in the Volta region? And the mother of all questions, should President Mahama and the NDC's legal team accept for Chief Justice Georgina Wood to empanel the justices to sit on this case at all? Because Chief Justice Georgina Wood is an in-law of lawyer Tachia, who is a cousin of Nana Akufo-Addo, who is also a petitioner in the case.
The group alleged the Chief Justice leaked the information on the panel of judges to a member of the NPP, who in turn brought the matter in the public domain. The group further asserted the NPP has no case and that they only want to play some delay tactics to heighten the hope of their supporters.
Well, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly has given hawkers and traders operating at unauthorized places in the metropolis 2 weeks to relocate. The Assembly wants to decongest pedestrian walkways of hawkers and traders. The Accra Metropolitan Assembly on Monday also undertook a similar exercise to decongest the Central Business District. And I have on the line William Evansinkum via phone, and he's our Ashanti Regional Correspondent. Good afternoon, William, and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, Wendy.
Now, have you been able to go around or been able to ask the KMA the space available at the hawkers market in the Ashanti region?
Well, exactly. As you rightly mentioned, the KMA, or the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, has given hordes of traders who are actually plying their trading activity on the streets of Kumasi 2 weeks to move to the Fiakobi market, which was actually unveiled a couple of months ago. So by the close of 4th February, we are expected hundreds of trades who have already gone various places in the Kumasi Central Business District to move to the Fiakobi market. In my interview with the special assistant to the mayor, Kikeri Chiwere, was very, very effective. In fact, he told me, confirmed that the KMA is much committed to making sure that all these traders are moved to the Fiakobi market. And he said that after 4th of February, we are going to see some high level of decongestion exercise in the Kumasi Central Business District.
So does it mean that he wasn't able to give you the available space at the market?
Well, as far as he's concerned, or as far as the discussion that we had earlier, he actually confirmed that there's abundant space, and the refusal of these traders to move to the market is an act of recalcitrance, because these spaces are there for them to occupy. They do not see the reason why they are still occupying the streets, and that gives them a lot of headache. So they are going to make sure that all these traders are moved latest by 4th February.
And how would these traders get access to the markets? Would they be registered and allocated the stalls, or how would they be given the space there? How would that be done?
Wendy, let me tell you this. You know, some of the traders, okay, this thing we do know. Some of the traders have stalls or places at the Fiakobi market. But the question is, why have they not moved? It's a big question now. I mean, something that we all live with witness to that. But then we don't know why they are still occupying the market. Perhaps this thing is something that I've always said, that when it gets to the situation where decongestion exercise has to be effected, that is where the MCs don't want to get involved, because that is the situation, or that is when you hear a section of the people coming out to say that no, earlier promises you said that we are going to allow us to
But is there a routine process for those who do not even have stores in the market?
He said yes, they've made arrangement for them, and they are expecting that they move to the market. So in a couple of days ahead, we have to see them being moved to the Fiapuri market so that we have an accessibility as far as human and vehicular traffic is concerned.
And before I let you go, this is not the first time we're hearing of such an exercise in the Ashanti region. How confident is the KMA to put an end to hawkers moving to the streets?
Well, that is what I was even trying to put across earlier. Kigeri actually told me that they are very much particular as far as this exercise is concerned, because it does not only cause them a lot of revenue as far as financing the decongestion exercise is concerned, but time is also money, okay? So they are going to make sure that this time around the thing actually works effectively.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time. I just spoke to William Evansinkum. He's our Ashanti regional correspondent, and we're looking at a decongestion exercise to be held in 2 weeks because they have been asked to relocate according to the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. Hawkers are supposed to relocate. We move on to some more stories on the foreign front. French President Francois Hollande says more French troops are to be deployed in Mali to support the 750 in the country countering an Islamist insurgents. And I have on the phone line Dr. Vladimir Chinazu, Senior Research Fellow at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. Good afternoon, Doc, and thanks for your time. Can you hear me, Doc?
Okay.
Can you hear me, Doc?
Hello, yes.
Now, the French has taken this initiative, hoping that others will join. Is this initiative acceptable in the first place?
I think it's long overdue. It's long overdue. In 1996, but for the French and American intervention, we would have had a similar situation in Mali and in Niger. And so when the whole thing started, I was expecting the French and the Americans again to come in, because it is in their interest that the Sahel area does not turn into a launch pad for jihad or Islamist or terrorists to launch attacks on neighboring countries and again in the far of America and the West.
Now, you are one person who has been stressing on dialogue. Is there any way for dialogue now, looking at the picture?
Sure.
Police Criminal Investigations Department has in its custody a 24-year-old student of the University of Education for impersonation. Carlos created a website using the identity of a pregnant woman he claims has HIV. A report by Bridget Otu.
The victim, Vashti, shared her horrifying experience about how she came to know of the existence of the website.
My big sister called me and was like, this is the page that is on Facebook, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't really know, but I suspect one person who is behind it, because I know what he's capable of doing, because he sent threatening messages. I don't know him from Adam, but the thing is that just Facebook, I found out that we had mutual friends, so I accepted him. And that was when he started sending me messages on Facebook. Hi, how are you? What's your name? Where do you live? Are you sure you're married? You look too young to be married and all that. And so I would just ignore most of his messages. He asked for my BlackBerry pin, he asked for my number, which I refused.
Carlos is a 24-year-old half Ghanaian and half Romanian with a degree in marketing. He sets up the website out of hatred for the woman who refused to give him her BlackBerry pin and cell phone number. Her refusal to give him the cell phone number resulted in constant attacks by Carlos on her and her family. The last straw was when she received a phone call from a friend telling her of an existing website with her details claiming she had HIV.
He put on the page that I have HIV, and he had 12 pictures of me as well as a friend of mine who is a Nigerian, and had a picture of my son and I, and that look at my ashy knees, and that look at all what the HIV is doing to me. I had to call my husband in the States because he's out of the country. So he told me to calm down because he knows that I'm pregnant and all that, but people kept calling me, and so I was always on the page 24/7. It's like I usually don't even sleep. If I was going to sleep maybe at about 3 o'clock, and I have to wake up by 6 o'clock to prepare my son for school, which was really something that weighed me down. For the last 3 days, I couldn't even do anything because like I was having pains in my stomach, and so I had to go to the clinic often, and so that, but the doctor said I was okay.
The CID monitored and traced Carlos to the Winneba campus of the University of Education, but were redirected to the Kumasi campus. Superintendent Francis Barr is the head of the documentation and visa fraud at the CID.
What do you intend to achieve by going on the social website? And now, once you go on the social website, you become vulnerable. Anybody can have access to you. People may not even look at your status. Because in this case that we are handling, for instance, a very prominent person's wife has been attacked by the same gentleman. People can create their own website. It's several. It's difficult to say that we are on the net and we will be monitored, unless those who can do that effectively are the service providers.
It's still Midday Live.
We've been talking about rent control and other issues surrounding the local government ministry. My turn is on and we're doing business at this point. My name is Kweku Teme. We'll still stay with building issues, and yes, some distributors and importers in the building material business are calling for stable rates and charges on their goods. They are worried these is impacting negatively on consumers.
Whether you decide to buy a house or build one yourself, it is inevitable to purchase building materials. These materials include cement, PVC pipes, iron rods, binding wires, and more for a perfect makeover. However, when prices of these materials are high on the market, some consumers settle for the less quality. Beneduse has been in the tile importing business for about 15 years. He laments the high duty charges at the ports is gradually taking a toll on their activities.
The cost of transporting the goods to the shops, the prices are not stable. Today you go there, they tell you scan, you have to wait for 3-4 days. So we are not taking the 5 million, we are taking 10 million. It means you have to pass the 5 million, you can't cost again back to the final customer. If you don't add all these markups, you want to stay friends cost again, you can final customer what again.
Aside these challenges in the building material business, distributors and importers believe consumers always have a choice when it comes to getting the right material for construction.
Yeah, what you have in your pocket will tell what kind of product that you needed. And I can tell you, for the landlord themselves, when they come, they actually want to buy the good quality things. But for the plumbers or those who are sent, they want to make money for their pocket. So sometimes they come here and take provisional invoice. By the time they come back to buy provisional invoice, second quality.
Interesting details from our building and construction industry. But let's move to the presidency, where President Mahama has emphasized the government's dedication to preventing and eliminating money laundering and terrorism finance in Ghana. While interacting with the Finance Action Task Force at the Castle Osu, the president assured Ghana now has under control the narcotic drug trade, the main avenue for money laundering in the country. Already, Ghana has been removed from the international money laundering blacklisted countries.
The Financial Action Task Force is in Ghana to assess the country's action plan to fully address money laundering and terrorism financing on the African continent. The intergovernmental body set up in 1989 sets standards and promotes effective implementation of legal, regulatory and operational measures for combating money laundering and terrorism finance.
And we have now got to a stage where, on paper, we feel that substantial progress has been made. New legislation has been enacted, new regulations introduced, executive instruments, etc. And at that stage, the process involves making this visit to have reaffirmation of the political commitment of Ghana to the process going forward and to sustaining the reforms.
Samuel Thompson Esel is the Chief Executive Officer of the Financial Intelligence Center, Ghana's response to anti-money laundering and terrorism finance, and speaks on the country's action plan.
The issue of ensuring that persons or entities that have been designated by the UN Security Council as terrorists are adequately treated in terms of seizure, freezing and confiscation of their assets and other matters incidental thereto.
He outlined how the center works within the framework of the Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorism Acts to eliminate the international crime within the ambit of the law.
But I just want to assure you that government is committed, to fighting, terrorism and also stopping money laundering. In Ghana, particularly, a lot of the money laundering that takes place would be one of a drug nature, because Ghana was beginning to become a hub for drug trafficking. We've taken the fight against the drug traffickers quite seriously, and that has made that go down a bit in terms of drug trafficking. But of course, with recent occurrences in the sub-region with regards to terrorism, especially in northern Nigeria, and the recent events in Mali, it means that our sub-region is not immune from the adverse effects of terrorism. And so we are a committed partner in the global alliance in fighting against terrorism. And we will continue to work with you. I hope that your trip is useful and that you will confirm that Ghana is up to its pledge in terms of fulfilling its commitment.
President Mahama also assured of government's full commitment to cooperate with all agencies, both local and international, to rid the country of such cross-border crimes.
So away from the presidency, we'll quickly dash to the commodity market. We're interested in knowing about the precious metal gold. We'll also take a quick look at how cocoa has fared. Now, these are your latest figures we're getting from the Bloomberg commodity prices. We should say it's just about 5 minutes when we updated all these lists. So bullion precious metal gold is up 9.58% with the current price of $1,677.97 US dollars an ounce on the international markets. But if you look at the rest, streak of downsides. Crude oil has seen a marginal decline, and so has cocoa seen a major decline of $9 US. So it's not looking too good for crude oil, and it tells you about major economies not seeing production increases. But then investor confidence will shift into bullion if thus production is moving. They would want to keep their money in a safe haven. So that's what you see reflecting when you apply the demand and supply race. Bullion has seen that marginal up as crude oil has declined in and around this time, dropping 0.13% with the current price of $111.78 US a barrel on the international market. Not too much of good news for cocoa, but we'll stay on the commodity market. At 4:30, we should come your way and tell you more about events on the market. Well, that's up for this afternoon. So long as business is concerned, we'll be joining you later in the day with some more business stories. You can visit our website www.tv3network.com for more.